Colossians chapter 2, one verse, and then we may look at a couple of other verses. Preaching to the young people tonight. And I know for some of you this will have absolutely no application. But you cheer me on while I preach to the young people that they'll get it. I began last week laying out some of the dangers of the modern dating scene. Preaching on the home on Sunday nights. And this is a good place to start. I'm convinced that there is more harm than good out of anything that the world does. I am convinced they've got it all wrong. And too many times church folks just follow along blindly without ever even asking, is this even biblical at all? And that's what I want to do. I want to challenge your thinking. Colossians 2 verse 8, beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men and the rudiments of the world, and not after Christ. Young people, I said last week that there are some dangers in modern teenage dating as the world does it. We tried to define that. And I said last week that there's the danger that it provides a temptation for sexual immorality. It promotes a spirit of adolescence, independence from the parents. It emphasizes intimacy without commitment. It is a distraction to spiritual growth. I didn't deal with these, but you could add them to the list. It conditions teenagers to take the marriage covenant lightly. It confuses romance with love. There are some dangers. So some girl sits there and says, all right, if I shouldn't have a boyfriend, how will I ever get married? It's a good question, isn't it? If I don't date around, then I'm going to end up being an old maid. How do you find a mate without dating around? And so tonight, that's what I want to talk about. I talked to you about what not to do. Tonight, I want to talk to you about what to do. But I'm going to warn you. I'm going to warn you that this is real archaic. We are going back to the dark ages tonight. Okay? I'm not talking about 1990. I'm talking about way, way back. And what I want to do is I want to give you a better way than what I described last week. And mind you, I'm not against boy liking girl. I'm very much for boys liking girls. Okay, very much for that. I was in the teen Sunday school classroom this morning before church, and there was a teen boy that said to a teen girl something about her being a monster. And I thought, one day your eyes will be opened. You will discover that what was a monster is a beautiful creature that God has created. And that will all change one day, all right? Well, it's futile to say boys shouldn't like girls because they're going to like girls. And they should like girls, all right? That's better than the alternative, okay? I just think that there is a better way to do it than how that this world has prescribed. Now, in recent years, there is a term that has been revived in Christian circles. I want to talk to you about the word. It is the word courting. Well, the word courting is a word that our grandparents would be familiar with, but it's a word which has kind of fallen out of use. As I understand courtship, it is the process of a man wooing a woman, convincing her to fall in love with him for the purpose of marrying him. The idea is to seek a relationship with a specific purpose. And the purpose is namely marriage. It is never man and woman together just for the sake of being together. Now, I'm not going to make a big deal out of which word you use, dating or courting. But to get the message across of the two different ways, I want to make a contrast, all right? So, modern dating, just listen for a minute, modern dating, it is a romantic relationship that is pursued for the immediate pleasure that it brings. Marriage may come of the relationship, but neither person is seriously considering it at the moment. It is a more than friends, less than committed relationship that may or may not lead to something more serious. There will probably be a series of romantic relationships before marriage. In fact, playing the field, dating around would be encouraged, because how are you going to know what kind of person you want to marry if you don't date 6 or 7 girls? That's the modern dating scene. Right? Now, courting would be pursuing it only with the intent of getting it right the first time. becoming emotionally and physically intimate with only one person in life, your spouse. It reserves intimacy until a commitment is made. That's quoted two different ways. Now, there are a great number of Bible principles for finding a mate. And the modern dating scene, as I talked to you last week about, the Bible has, none of that squares up with the Bible at all. When you open your Bible, teenage boys and girls did not date like they do now. Ancient cultures did not encourage emotional or physical intimacy among adolescents. You won't find one encouragement, you won't find one example in the Bible of a young man becoming romantically involved with a young lady for the pleasure of the romance of that relationship. Only when the young man or young woman is thinking of marriage do they ever consider a serious relationship with a member of the opposite sex. Now, every one of you girls, look right here at me. Okay? Look at me. One day you will agree with what I'm going to tell you. That it will be a wonderful thing to stand at a marriage altar with a pure body and a pure mind. It would be a wonderful thing to be able to give your whole heart to your husband. It would be a wonderful thing for a young couple, oh, this is archaic, for a young couple to stand at the marriage altar and share their first kiss as the preacher pronounces them man and wife. Some of you have already lost that opportunity. That'd be a wonderful thing. To go into marriage without emotional baggages of past romances, devastating breakups, sexual immorality. And I believe that we do have some young people in our church that do have that desire, and they want the best that God has for them, and they want to be pure, and they want to honor one another. They want to do right by the opposite sex. They want to have the will of God in that area of their life. And so tonight I want to tell you how. Okay? How. Now remember, if you're a junior high, this is not for you. If you're 12, you don't even need to take notes. Okay? You have no business having a girlfriend. Okay? So we've set the parameters. 5 or 6 things, you ought to write them down. Number 1. And I've already made this point, so I'll just reemphasize it. Only when you are ready to get married. Only, oh, that's a killer, isn't it? Bummer. A young man and a young woman should only seek a serious relationship when they are seriously considering marriage. Let me tell you why. The romantic desires and passions that emotional intimacy brings can only be fulfilled during marriage. So to allow those passions and those desires to run wild in a serious courting relationship that does not have marriage in view is to stir the passions while at the same time denying the passions. Does that make sense to you? You're all dressed up, but with nowhere to go. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to marry the first girl that you date. Okay? You may not get it right. Okay? But you're not trying them out. Are we clear? All right? In the Bible, the only reason for a young man and young woman to start a relationship was to eventually to get married. No romantic relationship for the pleasure of just teenage romance. By the way, when you are considering a mate, okay? See, you thought I was going to talk to you about how not to get married. I want you to get married, okay? I'm going to help you. I will help you, all right? But to tell you, there should be physical attraction. How many of you guys believe that? Say amen. She should be cute. There should be physical attraction. There should be emotional compatibility. If she gets on your nerves now, wait till you marry her. There should be physical attraction. There should be emotional compatibility. There should be spiritual agreement. But the mistake that the world makes is that they place physical attraction first. Romantic interest is always the primary ingredient, and everything else is secondary to marriage, which is why the world really doesn't have a very great track record at marriage and divorce. Only when you are ready to get married. Number two. Be very selective. Very selective. Before you enter into any kind of courtship relationship, you should already have down guidelines for who you will and will not marry. Not who you will and will not date, but who you will and will not marry. And it needs to be done now. It needs to be done before you get romantically involved with somebody. Because I'm going to tell you something. Romance is a powerful emotion, and it will override your logic and common sense. So you need to make the list. You need to have a list. You need to make the list now, because you cannot trust yourself to a smart, spiritual decision when hormones are raging. Be very selective. Now I have to say this. You can set the criteria so high that even God can't find somebody for you. Okay? You might need to get some help with your list. It is possible to set the bar so high that nobody can reach the bar. And if they could reach the bar, they probably wouldn't want to marry an obsessive perfectionist like you anyway. And so you got to be careful there. I know one girl. That had on her list, she had a list, that's good. One of the things on her list was that he had to have a Bible name. So Ronald wouldn't work. Had to have a Bible name. Well, that's good. I love the Bible. I like Bible names, okay? I don't know that having a Bible name really says anything about your spirituality. I'd rather he live a Bible life than have a Bible name. She's not married, by the way. Does this person have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ? Does this person have a consistent walk with God? Do they have a heart and a mind toward spiritual things? You've got to be selective. Hey, write down, I'll not turn there, write down Deuteronomy chapter 7, verse 1 through 4. Deuteronomy 7, verse 1 through 4. Go read that sometime. Write down 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14 through 16. 2 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 14 through 16. Here's who you don't marry. You see, too often times a young lady will make the excuse that she's dating a lost boy or a carnal boy, but through my spiritual influence, I'm going to win him to the Lord once we get married. And that's a foolish mistake that 1,000 godly women wish that they had never made. And I'm tired of seeing good kids get involved with some other kid at school or the youth group that doesn't have a spiritual walk, and that relationship hinders their walk with God. I'm tired of seeing that. And if you are a serious Christian, I'm going to tell you that one of the greatest blessings of life is to marry somebody of the same mind spiritually, and for you and that person to serve God together. Imagine the confusion in my home if my wife were an Episcopalian and I a Baptist. Do you think there'd be any strain in our relationship? Most of our life and our conversation and our dreams and our plans are Christ-centered. What we give, how we live, where we go, who our friends are, what we talk about. I cannot imagine there being a division between my wife and I in that area of our life. I think about the influence on our children. If my wife was Catholic and trying to raise our children Catholic, and I were Baptist trying to raise our children Baptist, do you think that would put a strain on our relationship? How could we ever enforce Bible convictions if we don't support each other? And I know that children in situations where there's one parent that loves God, there's another parent that is lost, I know that God can raise those children up and God becomes the father. I understand that. But how sweet it is when husband and wife are joined together and there's spiritual agreement and they serve God together. And every young person in this room, you ought to make a vow to God that you will not date for one moment, not one moment, not one moment, not one day, any person that does not have a sincere relationship with Christ. And don't try to convince yourself that someone is a believer just because they talk the talk or because they come to church. And girls, don't make the mistake that just because he carries a big Bible and waves in the youth choir that he's spiritual. Because sometimes a good girl with a lot of spirituality but not a whole lot of sense will fall in love with what she perceives to be the spiritual boy in the youth group, and she wants to be a preacher's boy, and if she's a preacher's wife, and if she marries him, then he's going to be the next Jack Hiles. Never mind that he's lazy, never mind that he don't have a job, never mind that he's rude to her, never mind that he has a temper, never mind that he doesn't shower. He's a preacher boy. Be very selective. I think he should have to interview. I do. To your father, to your pastor, to your youth pastor, to you. Yeah. You can come and get the list from me later, and I've cut the list way down. But just some questions. He comes, he's wanting to know you, he's wanting to talk to you. Okay, it's a good talk. Do you have a job? How long have you had it? What promotions have you received in the past 12 months? What other jobs have you held? What is your average stay on a job? How much do you make? What skills do you have that can be used for gainful employment? Just questions, just talking. What do you do in your spare time? Just conversation starters. Do you still play video games? What is the last nonfiction book you read? How long ago was that? How many books have you read this year? How many hours a day do you spend watching TV? What are your favorite programs? Do you think it's smart that you watch more TV than you read good books? What kind of music do you listen to? How often do you go to the movies? Do you have a checking account? Do you have a savings account? Are you in debt? Was that smart? Just questions, conversation. Have you ever filed for bankruptcy? What is your political affiliation? Who did you vote for in the last election? Are you saved? When and where do you get saved? How does a person get saved? What is your doctrinal position on ecclesiology? Just questions. Just questions. What do you believe about supralapsarianism? Just conversations. I don't know if he reads his Bible. List all the churches you have been a part of. What church are you currently a member of? How long have you been a member? How often do you attend the services? Do you tithe? Do you give to missions? What ministries are you involved in? Church softball is not a ministry. Try again. When is the last time you led a person to Christ? Have you ever read your Bible through? What is your daily practice in Bible reading and prayer? What is the last answer to prayer you can remember? You do want him to be a prayer warrior, don't you? Right? Just questions. Have you ever had physical relations with another person? When was the last time? Have you repented of that sin? When was the last time you were in contact with that person? Have you ever drank or used drugs? Which? How long? How long ago? Do you have any desire for those things now? Will you submit to a random drug test if I ask you? Have you ever been tested for sexually transmitted diseases? Have you ever been involved in pornography? When was the last time you looked at it? Have you ever been arrested, charged, or convicted of a crime? Misdemeanor? Felony? Have you ever been ticketed for reckless driving? Do you have a problem with anger? Have you ever broken or thrown anything in a temper tantrum? Have you ever hit someone or destroyed property in anger? When? What were the circumstances? When was the last time it happened? Have you received counseling? Just questions. Now, I know some of it's tongue-in-cheek, but I hope it illustrates to you that you get ready to make the most important decision of your life outside getting saved. Don't blow it. Don't blow it. And you better get some guidelines before you get emotionally involved. Hey, kids, write this down. 5 things. Write this down. This is not mine. 5 things. Number 1, every date is a possible mate. Every date is a possible mate. Number 2, it's better to wait and know it than to date and blow it. Better to wait and know it than to date and blow it. Number 3, how you get them is how you keep them. I'm giving you so much wisdom tonight. How you get them is how you keep them. Number 4, what they are not, they always will be. What they are not, they always will be. Number 5, postpone possibilities until parents are perfectly pleased. Postpone possibilities until parents are perfectly pleased. Be selective. Number 3, we've got to hurry. Number three. I'm talking about how. Okay, how. Number 3, very important. Men initiate. Women respond. I told you archaic tonight. Men initiate. Women respond. It used to be many years ago that if a young man had an interest in a young woman, he had to make the first move. He had to stick his neck out if he had any chance of getting close to her. Men initiate. He had to put his cards on the table, let it be known that he had interest in her, and take the risk that comes with it. Nowadays, it's all backwards. The girl flirts with him, lets him know through back channels that she likes him. He talks to her friends to get assurances from her friends that she likes him, and she lets all her friends know that she thinks he's cute, and that gives him the courage then to pursue a relationship. That is not initiation, that's cowardice. That's what that is. That is cowardice. The bravest thing that a young man will ever do is talk to a pretty girl. Absolutely. He can play rugby, he can play football, he can go hunting, he can camp in the woods, he can be Bear Grylls, but put him in front of a pretty girl, and he turns to jello. Does that mean you have to take all the risk? Yes. Does that mean that she can reject me and leave me twisting in the wind? Yes. Does that mean that I have to become vulnerable and she don't have to risk anything? Yes. Welcome to being a man. Amen. It's always been God's design. Always been God's design that men lead, men initiate, and women respond. And if a young man is not able to take that step, he's not ready. Hey, listen to me, girls. Listen to me. I'm going to be a friend tonight. Are you listening? A young lady should never ask a boy on a date. Never. She should never leak her interest to a young man. Never. She should never be flirty or forward to the opposite. Some of you old folks ought to help me right here, all right? She ought not be flirty. She ought not be forward. But what if I'm interested in him and he doesn't get it and he won't talk to me and I got to get the ball rolling? Do you really want him? Really? When young men fail in the role of leadership, then a strong woman has to pick up the reins and push him. I'm going to tell you, if you've got to push him before marriage, you're really going to have to push him after marriage. Amen. So write a couple of things down. You're enjoying this too much, I can tell. So let me just... Here's how it ought to happen. The young man should never approach the young lady first. He should approach her father first. Hey, Dad, you got the responsibility to protect her. You stand as the guardian. You are the protector, especially when it comes to courting and marriage. In Genesis chapter 24, Eliezer traveled to Nahor to find a bride for Isaac. He met Rebekah at the well and watered her camels. He did not tell her who he was or why he was there. He said, take me to your father. And only, check it out, only when he was in front of her father did he first, at that moment, when he's in front of her father, did he then tell him, why I'm here is to get a bride, for Isaac. And a young man has no right to woo a young woman without the father's permission. And no father should allow a romantic relationship without his approval. You have that right. You have that responsibility. If a young lady doesn't have a supportive father, then a mentor, an older brother, a grandfather, a pastor, but he must initiate. Must. Number two, the father should decide whether this relationship is going anywhere. The father makes this decision. If he knows this young man, he can make that decision based on that young man's character, but he's got to investigate it. The father should be very selective, scrutinize every aspect of this young man's life. He goes to the daughter. He approaches the daughter. He and the daughter talk. If the daughter is okay with that, then the father says okay. But the father always stands there. Suppose some boy comes to my house tonight, gets in my car, and drives off without asking me. A few hours later, he pulls back in the driveway, throws me the keys, and walks away. I'll have him arrested. No business taking my car without asking my permission. My daughter's more valuable than my car. I've spent way more money on my daughter than I have. By the way, if the young man rebels at the father's authority, tries to circumvent that, then he proves he's not fit. That is 1, 2, 3 strikes against him. He doesn't have proper respect for authority. He hasn't learned to submit. Right? Father always stands there, always stands there. If the daughter's not interested, she doesn't tell him. The father does. Hey, Jack, hit the road. You ain't it. Are we good? Are we good? I'm helping you girls what I'm doing. Helping. Be very selective. Very selective. Number four. Go slow. Go slow. Once you have given the green light to pursue the relationship, don't strip a gear and burn rubber trying to get started. Go slow. One of the most common mistakes that a young couple makes is going too fast in their relationships. That's always the case when romantic is driving the relationship. It takes time to get to know a person. Okay? She might burp when she eats a meal. You need to know that. Right? She might chew with her mouth open. You need to know that. Right? His feet may stink. If you don't like stinky feet, you need to know that. These things are important. 3 words. Be careful and say them. I love you. Those 3 words elevates that relationship to a new level. And once you get to that emotional level, it's hard to back off of that with that person. Girls, listen to me. Would it not be a wonderful thing to walk to a marriage altar with a young man, and that be the only young man that you said those 3 words to? I love you. And wouldn't you like to know that you are the only girl that he's ever had eyes for? You're the only girl that has ever said, I love you. Wouldn't you like that? I'm going to tell you, there's something special about that. Every level in the relationship that you go to, you can't back down. I told you this. When you're just friends, that's one level. But then when you go where you're going steady, you're in a relationship, you can't back down and just be friends. When you get to the level of I love you, you can't say, hey, we took that step too far. Let's back up and let's don't do that no more. No. When you get engaged, you can't get unengaged and still be friends. Am I making sense to you? So every step that you take, be much in prayer, be much in fasting, and make sure that you're ready to take that step. Go slow. Number five. I'll end with this one. Get ready. Getting married is a serious thing. The more prepared that you are, the better chances you have at succeeding. Marriage presents challenges you have no idea of. And you got to be ready for those challenges. Young men, you need to know how to lead. Be trained to lead. What does it mean to be the head of a household? By the way, head of the household, that doesn't mean you're king of the mountain. That means you're chief servant. That's what that means in the household. Right? That means that you are responsible not just for yourself, but for your wife too. So do you have any leadership? Can you make wise decisions? Are you ready to support a family financially? Now you'll never have enough money to get married. Okay? You'll never have enough money. When my wife and I got married 24 years ago, we made $500 a month. Now I know some of y'all in the 1920s made a quarter a week or whatever. I know. Okay. But we made $500 a month. $500 a month. If we would have waited until we could afford it, then we'd have probably got married, last year maybe? Something like that. Do you have a steady job, a steady paycheck, place to live, pay your bills? God gave Adam a job before he gave him a wife. He had responsibilities. Keep the garden, name the animals, then he gave him a wife. It's a good principle. You got to have a job before you have a wife. Okay? So get ready. Are you ready to lead spiritually? Every problem in your home will have a spiritual root. You better be ready for that. Young ladies. A young lady needs to learn discretion and discernment. She should develop a submissive spirit, a pure heart. Be careful of having an independent spirit. That independence will give you problems in the marriage. You'll learn how to cook, clean, take care of children. Every teenage girl in here ought to be keeping the nursery. Good training for marriage. Ought to learn how to be attractive without being seductive. Okay. How to present yourself as a godly young lady that is beautiful but not trashy. Can I say that? You don't have to be flirty and wear tight, loose. You don't have to do that to be. You can be modest and stylish at the same time. Yes, sir. I'm going to tell you something. There's something about keeping yourself pure physically, keeping yourself pure emotionally, and intimately, falling in love with one person, God putting you together, physical attraction, you think she is the hottest thing since sliced bread, emotional compatibility, you just talk for hours and hours, and in spiritual agreement, all this, she shouldn't have to quit anything to go by your standards. I already have those convictions. When God puts two people like that together, you do things right. Parents stay involved. Keep yourself pure. Walk the aisle. Kiss. Sparks fly. It's like dynamite. Serve God together. I'm going to tell you, that's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And it takes work to get there. But if you ever get to the marriage altar like that, thank God that you did it the right way. Agree with me tonight? Heavenly Father, put in their hearts tonight a desire to serve you. To shun the philosophies of this world. Society has proven that they don't know how to do anything. And I pray tonight that you put in their hearts just a desire to be biblical, to be pure, to be godly. Our heads are bowed, our eyes are closed. How many of you young people gathered around the altar tonight and say, God, help me. God, put your hand upon my life. Protect me. Give me wisdom tonight. Help me, Lord, with all of these passions that are so natural and so real. But, oh, God, help me to be spirit-filled. Help me to be filled with your power tonight. Oh, God, help me to make wise decisions. show me the young man, show me the young woman that you have for me. Help us to grow together in you. And if you should put us together to serve you as husband and wife and to raise our children for you, I tell you, there's nothing more wonderful than that. Nothing. Why don't you come tonight? You parents want to come tonight and pray for your kids. We ought to do that. Never get off the altar. Pray for these young people tonight. All the pressures that they're going to face. Oh, my soul. But I believe they have a heart that wants to do it right. And I want to be there cheering them on, helping them on. God, put your hand on them tonight. Fill them with your Spirit tonight. Holy Spirit of God.